Hey, and welcome back to Science. This is trapping thermal energy, part 2. We finished yesterday with a FLIR camera, something that uses infrared technology. We caught the dog. He'd been on the couch. A much better use for these cameras, however, is in looking at insulation and how well things insulate. So the way these work, blue is lower temperatures, red is higher temperatures. When you use this from the inside of the house, you want things to be red because that means they're at a higher temperature. Blue is spots that are a problem. Corners are notoriously difficult to insulate. So you see this in this one, the corner of the house is the lowest temperature. From the outside, you want things to be blue because that means they're at a low temperature. Red is a definite problem spot. Thermal energy, this roof is definitely not insulated well enough. The ceiling is not insulated well enough because we can see a lot of thermal energy escaping through that roof. The roof has heated up way higher than it should be. And of course, that is because warm air rises. Need good insulation in those ceilings, kids. So here are a couple pictures of windows. This is not from me. This is purported to be before and after with some thermally treated windows. Pretty obvious what the difference is here. Looks like they also installed a thermal door. There are different ways to get around this. You can put up drapes. There are some drapes that are a little bit thicker that are meant to be insulating drapes. We've got some for our patio door. It seemed like a worthwhile investment for us. On this particular house, this is interesting because windows usually are a weak spot. These windows, I don't know if they have the insulating drapes or shades there, or if they're just really good quality windows, but the windows appear to be the strong point in this house, whereas the wall and these windows upstairs, but goodness, that wall really should have much better insulation. They may have a double roof here, but the roof seems to be working quite nicely, but those walls, not so much. The use of these cameras can also help identify some problem areas. Somebody done messed up when they built this house. They forgot to put in insulation here underneath this window. That is what you call a blunder. Completely skipped it, apparently identified with a FLIR camera, because this is actually what it looks like to the naked eye. This is taken from inside the house. Now you'll notice that there's some areas that were problems. I don't know what happened here. It may have been that water got in and caused some damage and collapsed the fiberglass insulation. It may have been that they just, for whatever reason, didn't run it all the way up. Those are some problem areas. But the main reason I actually took this one is notice you can see that these studs, those 2x6s, those chunks of wood, the sticks that the house frame is made of, are thermally a weak spot. They are not as good of insulators. Yeah, wood does seem to be a good insulator, but it is not as good as fiberglass. So everything we've been looking at here so far has been insulation, which is stopping thermal energy transferring. There's another issue in your house, potentially, something called infiltration, where you have air, cold air actually coming in from the outside and warm air actually leaving your house. Not just thermal energy passing through the walls, but actual air coming in and out. And there's a lot of places for this to happen. Now you're probably thinking, oh, my house is sealed real well. Well, they've got these things called a blower door test. What they'll do if you have one of these done is bring this giant fan in that fits inside of a doorway. And they'll ask you to close every other door and window in the whole house. Then they'll turn this fan on. Theoretically, if your house is completely sealed, you shouldn't be getting much or any air moving through that blower door. How much goes through, based on how much goes through, they can tell you the equivalent size of window that is open in your house. Most times when people have this done, they're shocked to learn that all those little tiny gaps in their house are the equivalent of having an entire door or an entire huge window open in their house. It's crazy scary. The little gaps add up. Side note, many of those gaps are also places that critters like mice can get in as well. So if you can close them up, you've got double duty being served. So one of the simplest of them to spot, wherever you have doors and windows, there should be some trim going around them. Don't peel that trim off yet. On a cold night, if you have suspicions, put your hand near one of those windows, near a bottom corner of a window. This is best done on a real cold night. See if you can feel any cold air coming in. You can even use the old candle trick and see if there's a breeze coming in. My current house, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, when I first moved in, I could put my hand here and I felt a breeze. It was not subtle at all. I then peeled away the trim from the window and I could actually see light coming in from the outside. That's not how these are designed to be. If you find some of these where you think there's too much, talk to your parents or whoever the household owner is, and then with their permission, carefully remove the trim and take a look. There should be some sort of insulation in there. If there is not insulation in there, you can put in fiberglass insulation, or you can buy the stuff called Great Stuff, foam insulation. Great Stuff is actually a trade name. No, I'm not getting paid by them. It's just a really common one. But warning, if you use this around a window or door, I'm not joking, you need to use the stuff that is labeled as window and door. What happens if you don't? Well, some of the stuff actually expands so well and so much that it could bend the frame of the window or door in such that the window or door no longer opens. That means you no longer have a door, you have a decorative wall. Stew on that one for a while. If you choose to use this, if you end up doing this, this is a little bit of a misleading picture. You fill it in about halfway because it just keeps on going after that. After it's all dry, you come by. If you messed up, you peel off the little bit extra that's hanging out or cut that out, and then you can put your trim back on. It's relatively inexpensive to do, and it can make a significant difference. Another simple, easy trick for you to do to help insulate your house, go into your basement or crawl space and look to see what things look like. If you have block foundation, you have a chunk of wood sitting on that, there may be a gap right there. Up above here, you may have gaps in here, blocks in here. This can be insulated very easily. This can really easily be insulated. So if you are familiar with Houghton Heat Project, I forget what the acronym stands for. What that project is doing is going around to different houses and helping them insulate. This is one of the most common things that they do because it's rather inexpensive and makes a huge savings for you. What you do is, well, for that rim joist, put in the great stuff. You don't need to use window and door for this one. Put in great stuff, lock that gap. In these, you take a piece of foam insulation, of styrofoam or polystyrene, cut that close to size, and then you use the expanding foam around it. Fill that in. It's messy. If you use the stuff, be careful. You're going to want to wear clothes that you don't mind having trashed, because if you get it on your clothes, the clothes are going to be trashed. But it's still relatively easy if these things are open and accessible. Great project for you to do as a family. Many of these are just done in one morning by a group of 3 or 4 people with the heat project. Okay, lastly, take a look. In the wintertime, do you notice a lot of houses that have big icicles dripping off? Now this last winter was a weird one. It had a lot of them because of the weather. We had really, really warm weather that caused a lot of melt, but then it froze shortly after that. So this year was a bit of an anomaly. But if on a normal cold winter there's these giant icicles, the problem could be with soffit venting and attic insulation. Attic venting, soffit and attic venting and insulating. Here's the general story. If you don't have enough insulation in your attic, you're going to let thermal energy through. The attic will warm up. It'll melt some of the snow on the roof. That roof snow melt runs down, but it gets to a spot that is not above the house, so it's really cold, and it freezes, and it forms a giant ice dam. These are a real problem because then when they get high enough up, the liquid comes down. It stays as a liquid because it's above this unfortunately heated attic, and then it can come in, up and under the shingles and start dripping into the house. As a homeowner, one of the worst sounds in the world is sleeping at night and hearing drip, 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 and knowing it's not just a sink. Water in a house is not a good thing when it's not contained where it should be. Water in your walls, never a good thing, ever. So the ways that we avoid this from happening: you have good insulation in the ceiling to keep the attic from getting too warm. You also vent that attic. So the vent, often you have something called a ridge vent, or sometimes you'll see things called gable end vents. So if you've ever looked on this end of the house and you see like a circular or a diamond structure or something there, that's a gable end vent. That'll let warm air out, but it has to get some cold air to replace it. Well, that's where this is coming from. Walk out your door and look up. You should see kind of a grill type thing. That's a soffit. It's meant to have air be able to get in there. You don't want too big of openings because then critters can get up in there. But air should be able to travel into there. If it can, then you end up with good circulation. Any warm air that ends up in the attic is vented out before snow can melt. No ice dams, no water in the house. The world is good. Another example of this one, they're showing the heat dam, or the ice dam. This is an interesting one where they actually have a furnace up in the attic. That can happen if you don't have a basement or a crawl space to put it. Certainly would not work by the gravity method then, because, well, if warm air is going to rise, that'd be a horrible situation. but forced air, push that air down into the house. You really want to insulate that beast and make certain you have good ventilation in that attic. This is probably the best one to show it. Faulty attic. Some of the things, believe it or not, there are people that would vent their bathroom or kitchen into the attic, putting warm, moist air in there. Hello, mold. How are you doing today? Those should be ventilated all the way out. A silly mistake is to push the insulation all the way out to here so that it covers up the soffit vents. If you've ever been in a house when this is being done, they actually put some little real thin pieces of paper kind of on the end to keep that insulation from getting all the way to the end of the soffit vent. You want to have air being able to come in through here and vent its way out. Here's yet another type of vent. A ridge cap is yet another that's very common around here. Okay, I know I'm blowing through these. If we were in class, people would be asking lots and lots of questions, and this would take actually an entire class period to finish because of all those great questions you have. The nice part is, if you're watching this, you probably have a Googler available to you, so you can do a little bit of research on your own. I will put this PowerPoint available as well, so that you can look at some of these pictures a little bit closer. I hope this answers a few questions. I hope you got something out of this. I do this because hopefully all of you will have your own residence someday, and these are ways that you can save some money and know how your house is working. The next assignment is going to be applying these past 4 videos. Take a look at your house and see how that one is going. So that assignment will be posted for tomorrow. Till then, have a great day. Take care.